All right. Well, we're at 5 minutes over, so we're going to go ahead and get started. This first part is introductory sort of things, anyway. So, agenda today is, it's the two of you, so and myself. So it's a small group here. And then my thought was we'd cover the dashboard, do a demo, questions, and then after that we'd do sort of the mobile dispatch routing demo and then questions. So there's sort of two different, very different sort of training things, but they're getting into some sort of, kind of advanced functionality within LEGO that you can utilize. So I know you, Jared. I've been working with you for a while. Pam, I don't know you as well, so maybe you could give me a little bit about background of, I think you're in Parks, is that correct, or are you in?
In Parks.
Okay. So I'm the service delivery manager here. I've been working at Marshall for 19 years, so I've been around for a while. Just for you, if you don't know too much about LEGO, basically we provide everything, the complete solution from the different hardware types of devices in the vehicle to, the motorized vehicles to trailers, things that don't have a power source that can run on a battery type device. We can also work with mobile phones, tablets, iPhones, Garmin's, and basically lots of different types of devices, whether they're in a vehicle or with a mobile user, so to speak. And then we have a secure VPN connection to our server where the data gets transmitted to the cloud, where then you just access it either through your desktop or a mobile device. And then, of course, we can also, with our LEGO access, we can send data over to your business systems such as ESRI, Lucidity, and other systems that you might have through that interface. So what we're going to cover today is dashboard, and it's a fairly new component within LEGO. And I actually, over the last few days, as I set up your dashboard on your side, your dashboard at least turned it on, added some in there for you to some basic things. So we're going to cover that today. And you can decide who has access to the dashboard. So just like everything else, it's role-based, where you can different folks in your organization can see different dashboards based on what's important to them. So having the ability to sort of get a real-time view on a sort of a bigger picture view is one of the things with the dashboard, and key metrics or sort of KPIs for things that are going on, like percent idle, percent moving, percent vehicles are on, ignition on. So there's pretty much anything that's going on, you can set up sort of dashboards with them, even if you have things like some of your connections to the equipment too, to know, sweeping, percent sweep, for those sort of things in the dashboard. And it's just sort of for management. They don't maybe need to see the detail, the level of detail. Dashboards are a way to give them a sort of an easier view, quick view of sort of a big picture on what's going on. And then again, with this, you can use the dashboard on a desktop, so your desktop interface, or you can even view it on a mobile, from a mobile phone as well. So to access the dashboard, there's a window drop-down menu, and you'll see it's called Dashboard. It wasn't available a few days ago, but now it is for you. And once you click that, it opens up a new tab down on the bottom, and there should be there should already be 5 basically dashboard items set up right now. Those can be removed if you want or turned off, but the 5 that are set up in the dashboard now are vehicle idling, fleet distance, and vehicle on, vehicles moving, and then fleet idle time are 5. And anyway, those are sort of the items within sort of the dashboard that you can add, or you can add additional ones into your interface there. One of the things that you can do with each item is you can scroll through and get sort of a different view of each. So you can get it as sort of a percentage view of that, or you can get the actual number. You know, for example, vehicle on, it'll show 18 out of 34. It does work with whatever view you're in. So if you switch a view, it changes the values based on the view. So, you know, for example, if it's the water meter reader view, it's going to be that number. It's going to be working with those. If you're working with all vehicles, then obviously it's going to work with the complete data set based on your view. So I believe this screenshot is actually showing when I picked the all view, it gave me, this was towards the end of the day, I think, so there was a number on my side, so a lot of vehicles were probably turned off at that point, but give you some quick information about that. If you click on the actual, so if you click on these, it brings up sort of a bigger view of these. So whatever, you know, if you're idling, it gives you sort of a graph and shows you the graph information, and you can switch under this drop down whether you want to see it in a day, week, month perspective and sort of a graph. So it just expands the view for that specific one, and then you can hit the back button, and then it goes back to sort of the overview of all your dashboard items. So in the dashboard, again, and you can set permissions to who has the editing capability of these dashboards. So if you want to limit them to just viewing dashboards in the role that they are viewing, this little icon wouldn't show up, but there's an edit or add dashboard right to the upper right of the dashboard, and that gives you the ability to either edit the existing dashboards or add new ones. And when you click that, it brings up this this dialog here where it'll show, this is where it will show the 5 existing dashboard items here. Over on the left-hand side, you can drag and drop these in a particular order, so you can move your items, whatever's most important, like from left to right, just by dragging and dropping. You can, of course, turn some of them off or on, so you can uncheck them. Right here, there's one with a little pencil. That's essentially the edit, allows you to edit an existing one. To the left of that is a copy. So you could copy one and rename it and then work from an existing one. So rather than sort of starting from scratch, you could make a copy of one, rename it, and then just sort of modify that existing one. So, and of course you can, up here in the upper left-hand corner, if you start to get a lot of dashboard items, you can search by particular ones that you want. You can also export these out as well. In the upper right-hand corner, if you hit the drop-down arrow, this is where you can add new dashboard items, and there's two types that are available. One is a condition-based, which is primarily all of the ones that are in there right now are condition-based. So things like idling and whether it's moving or that's a sort of a condition-based. And then there's event rule-based. So event rule-based might be speeding or sweeping or PTO, or so some of the events that you've created you can basically create an event rule-based dashboard item based on your event rules so that, again, they can see it as a sort of a big picture view of those. So here's an example of how, and this sort of walks you through. I will provide you this PowerPoint presentation, by the way. So this walks you through how to create a new dashboard item. So you click the upper right, and then you pick, in this case, you'd pick maybe a condition-based dashboard item, number 2 here. It then brings up a edit dashboard item, and then you just fill out the information about this. So this example, idling, vehicle idling, speed less than, and then you can, so this sort of gives you an example of how to fill this out. You could change the color of what the graph looks like, what type of graph, whether it be sort of sort of those bar chart or different types that you want to sort of display that in. And then, of course, at the end, you just save that dashboard item. You could add another one, for example, any moving vehicle. So if the vehicles are moving, so in this case, speed greater than 0. Operation current count, and again, you can set the color code of this and then just save that. And this is basically what the result would be from creating that through those steps. So you have sort of an idling dashboard item and then a moving dashboard item, and this would give you real quick sort of a percentage of idling versus percent of moving as an example here. And you can go back in and edit those and add additional things or revise it. So you could add, the condition being ignition is on or true to that, for example. So it would only measure when the ignition is on, specifically, for example. And that gives you, what that does is it gives you sort of a visualization of that information again. And when you can click on the actual chart, it comes up. So here's an example where you have these sort of high-low, and notice the drop down, you have day, week, month. So you can sort of get a picture of, the amount of idling, for example, over a given period, and sort of where high points are, and then of course you could take that information and then put it into reports or other things, and that sort of thing. So, any questions so far?
Are these already on all of our users, or do we add these? The dashboard.
So let's take a look at that. So I'm in your application here. I'm in the meter reader view here. So if I come up here, in the drop down, you should now see a dashboard item, and I think I've only made it visible to everyone that's in the Tuscaloosa administrator role. So I don't think it's been made available to everybody. Just for, I wasn't sure. I know Jared and Lauren were administrators, so I thought I would add it to your guys' view. But I can show you real quick where, if you wanted, to add somebody in there. So let's say we wanted to add the water meter, managers to be able to see this dashboard. We come into privileges here, and then it's at the bottom. Let's see here. So it's right dashboard. So if you notice, it's unchecked here.
Yeah.
So you would just check dashboard, and then if you just want them to view, so you could decide which ones they see here. Once they're created, you could decide the ones that are going to be visible on their dashboard. And you could give them editing if you wanted to, or just basically give them view only here under their role.
And now that will only be able to see for the vehicles that are assigned to them, correct?
That's correct. Yes.
Okay.
So here, under the windows, you go to dashboard, and then what it does is it brings up a new tab, the dashboard item here, and then you can see right now, again, this is just related to, and notice that just went to 6%. When it had a idling alert, it was 0, so now it's at 6. So it's dynamic based on what's going on. You have speed distance, you have percent vehicles on, you have percent vehicles moving, and then fleet idle here. And each one of these you can sort of scroll through, and it gives you additional information. So there's one vehicle out of 18 in our view that's currently idling right now. And you can sort of see a graph here. So if I click on the graph, it gives me sort of the amount of vehicles idling for today. So I can sort of hover over this. Gives you information about that idling that's going on, and then you just hit the back button. It goes back to your sort of key dashboard here. Or vehicle on, click on the vehicle on. It sort of gives me a view of when the vehicles are on here, given time. So you notice it says 12, sort of at the top point here. It's at 10 a.m. That's how many are currently on right now. Or moving, same thing. Got 11 moving. Again, each one of these, as you sort of scroll through, it gives you, okay, 10 out of 18, gives you that graph view. 8 out of 18 gives you the sort of the graph view. This one's mainly 12 hours, the amount of idle time, the total idle time, and this is fleet distance, how much they've traveled, essentially. So do you have questions about that so far?
No, it's actually, I've got it pulled up on mine now. It's actually pretty straightforward, pretty easy to use.
Yeah, so, and then, you just come up here in the upper right-hand corner. You have your dashboard items here that you could easily drag and drop. So you could just move it to it like that, and it'll just drag it and move it to a new location. If, again, you had a lot of dashboard, because you could keep adding dashboard items in here, and you could sort of put the key ones over on the left or anything like that just by dragging and dropping. You can obviously turn them off if you decide to turn them off. You could do that. You can make a copy of one, so this essentially makes a copy, and then you could rename this to something else and then change some of the operational or conditions here. If you wanted to, that might be a good way of just to play around, is to sort of work with an existing one and then do a save, and then maybe change some of the conditions that are related to that. So duration, current count, accumulator count, etc., can be modified there. Or you could, of course, come in and edit an existing one. So you come in, edit, and then change some of the information that's on give me just a second, I'll be right back because I've got a printout. I was going to go through and actually go through and create one here for you.
Okay.
Okay, so up in the upper right, we can go to pick one of these, like if I go condition-based, and then you can change the specific name for this. Let's call this idling. Vehicles idling at the moment. And then, so you have, again, you notice there's just a ton of stuff that you could pick from that's whatever sort of conditions or things that are going on with your vehicle, you can pick that specific thing, whether it be broom down, broom up. If I go down to speed, so I might pick speed, and then I could pick, again, whether it's equal to, greater, lesser than, etc. And then you could put your, again, miles per hour, 0.5 miles per hour, current count, and you can change whatever color code you want for the graph. You can make it this type, so this is a line type or a bar type, and then save that. So now I have a new one down here for idling, and then if I wanted to create another one for moving, basically the same steps as before, and you just walk through and you create that. So there's lots of, again, condition type things, whether it be idling, moving, any sort of inputs you have, PTO, you can choose from that and then add it in just like this. And it should be fairly straightforward. We can help you if you have some specific ones that you're having trouble, I guess, creating. But that's basically the concept there, is that you can add those in. Again, it's based on the vehicles that are in the view, so each department that's working with their view, they're only going to see their vehicles and so forth. And then on the mobile, I don't really have a mobile app to show you, but you could also go to the mobile and see these same sort of things in a little bit different view as well on the mobile device. But that is an option too. Let me go ahead and delete this one I just created here. There's already an idling one. Of course, you could export it out if you wanted to as well. But that's basically the dashboard concept. So any questions about that?
As far as the mobile dashboard, is that going to be an app or another, like just a web address you go to, like the desktop?
So I'm going to cover that. I'm going to cover that in the next section, which is mobile.
Okay.
So yes, there is an app. It's called So you can connect to LEGO just via a connection. There's also a downloadable app. So there's sort of two options of how you work. So I'm going to cover that. I guess we got through the dashboard faster than I thought, so it only took a half hour. So do you want to go through the mobile and routing part now?
Yeah, we can work on that. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so mobile and dispatch. So mobile dispatch overview, essentially it gives you the ability from LEGO to be able to work with dispatching out jobs, routing, route optimization. You can get full integration with the map in terms of closest vehicles and those sort of things and then of course creating it, you can work from the map to create your jobs and those sort of things. So you have sort of a view from the office, and then you have a view from the mobile device. And there's also reporting that's available on when the drivers actually complete their route or jobs as well. That's available. From the office as well as you can create routes, you can import your routes, you can optimize your routes, you can schedule and dispatch those to your field users. On the mobile side or the person in the field, there's a couple different components. One is you could just log in as an operator to LEGO like you normally would, like HTML, and just to view like the dashboard part. So if you're wanting to just view your fleet vehicles from a sort of a supervisor perspective and see that dashboard and see your vehicles, you would just log in like an HTML just like you would in the office. However, we do have a couple different apps that are available depending on what you want to do. So we have a tracking component that you can install that allows you to actually track your phones or tablets. So it's just a download, and you connect that up, and that's just another feed like a device that's in the vehicle, but it's a phone. So it's a way we have customers that are doing things like going out and assessing properties, and they need they want to know in the office if they've arrived at a location, and sort of where they are, and dispatching and so forth. And then the other application is called the Mobile Dispatch app. So that's actually another. It's again, it's either going to be available to you on the Apple Store or the Play Store, Google Play Store, and you can receive jobs and those sort of things, get turn-by-turn directions. You can also auto-complete those jobs just based on their location of when they arrive at there. So you can either have it so that they are filling those things out, so there's an interface, or you could just, based on if you're wanting to keep it more like, as an example, might be customers that are doing solid waste where they're driving to pick up locations and they don't want maybe the driver interacting. It's maybe mounted with the application, but just auto completing them based on their arrival time, arrival location, that sort of thing. So it has a map, it has the sort of their route on the phone, and then it works with any iOS, Android, Garmin devices, and gives them sort of that turn-by-turn direction style. So just like dashboard, the dispatch is also available in the window drop-down menu. So you go to window, you see the dispatch, you click on the dispatch, and then it brings up, just like the dashboard, it brings up a new tab for dispatch. That's in the lower bottom section. Just as a note, you can drag and drop these. So if you have, say, your dashboard or your dispatch, both of those you can save a workspace. Maybe you specifically want a workspace for dashboard or a workspace for dispatch. You can move these around, drag and drop them to exactly where you want, and then save a workspace so it stays that way. If you sort of move things around and then just don't save the workspace, you log out, it just goes back to where it was before, and you have to sort of go through these steps again. So just to remember that you can sort of adjust things, and then if you want to keep it that way or save, a different look and feel for specifically dispatching or dashboard, you go up to workspace and then save, like do a save as or save your workspace so it stays that way. So once you open the dispatch tab, there's a lot of different sort of components to it, depending on sort of what you want to do. So there's a calendar view, so you can go to, you can either scroll through each day to see what's been assigned to individuals, their routes. You can bring up the calendar view and actually see the calendar view. Over on the right-hand side is where you create the jobs and the routes. So there's a plus job, so if you just wanted to create one right there. There's also, just to the right of jobs, there's a drop-down where it allows you to create a route or a job. When you initially create one, they're unassigned until you actually assign them. So they go into a sort of an unassigned group, and they may be sitting there. And then once they're assigned, then they go into the specific worker's assignment sort of grouping there, down below here. And the assignments can be based on certain time period, so if they have to be there at a given time, you can sort of see here, you can click and see when, you can either delay it, so in other words, if you know they're going to be late or something, you can move it to a certain time. This little thing on the right, number 7, is your jobs list. So for a worker, you can click on there and see their jobs, sort of see the current status of each of their jobs that they're working on. Number 8 here in the upper left, so there's a little drop down under the dispatch, and that gives you the ability to do different things like import all of your routes or import jobs. That's where you can set up the autocomplete settings. So if you're wanting them to just, not really interact with the jobs, more of as they arrive at the location, it auto-completes it based on arrival in the system. So it's sort of a hands-off sort of approach. A lot of other things, like when you're actually setting up the tracking of the mobile device, there's a QR code. So what that does is it allows you to scan a QR code with the mobile device, and it sort of links up the worker with the mobile device they're using, so that it basically syncs up those. So if you go down this road, when we set this up, basically that's the way to sort of link the worker or driver with the phone or device that they have, is you just hit that option, and then you can scan the code, and again they'll be linked together, so you'll know this device is associated with this worker, so to speak.
Where does that QR code come from?
It's just generated. The QR code is generated, and then it's tied to the device that so you can use your device, actually use your camera, and then you scan the code, and then that code links up with the worker, basically.
Okay, so, but where does that's just, would we print that off?
It's in this drop-down number 8 here, where it says advanced options. You hit this drop-down dispatch, you'll see, and I'll show you what that is here in a minute. So in terms of overall just creating jobs, you have a number of options if you want to do it manually. You can click on, like, for example, a point of interest. So point of interest, again, is something that you've imported into the system, like it could be a fuel station or a building or an asset or whatever it might be. You can right-click, create a job at that location, and then it'll put the name and all the information that's related to that point of interest in the job for them. So, like, for example, this particular one on the left is a customer that's they're a construction company, and they go out and have to go to a pick up gravel and sand and that sort of thing. So you right click and create the job and then assign it to the person to go pick up and it'll give them turn by turn directions to get there. You could do the same thing with just by clicking on the map, like one of these buildings here. It would put the address on there, and then you can fill out that information as well. So once you've sort of created the job, it brings up a form, and then you can fill in the information. Again, if you're doing it from the map, it's gonna automatically fill that information out. Like if you did the point of interest, it's gonna put the location is going to be the point of interest name. If you're just clicking on the map, it's going to put the address there for you. But you can set up the schedule, you can assign it, and then basically it gives you sort of a job status of what initially it's going to be unassigned. So until you just basically save it, and then it's in the unassigned group, and then you reassign it there. Notice we're going to cover this too, but there's jobs, there's routes, and there's schedule, these things in the drop-down menu here.
So you can make it where a user can...
Go ahead.
So we could make it to where a user could only see the dashboard and like say their schedule. Correct. I understand that correctly?
Yes.
So if we have a user just only access, say, on the laptop to the dashboard or whatever division, say it's a worker, he can't see like other vehicles. He would have access to this, basically this schedule, right? He or she.
So yeah, I mean, everything's set up to where you can, based on their role, you can check or uncheck what they see, whether it be dashboard information or whether it be dispatch information, based on their role.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm asking. So if we had a worker who could view, who had a login, and he was given, we use this and we set up jobs for the entire week, Monday through Friday.
Yeah.
He would be able to see that like on a calendar view.
Yes, they could see it either on a calendar view or list view or on the map. Those are the sort of the three options. Visually on the map, they could get a list view or a calendar view.
Okay. Now, I might be getting a little ahead of myself here because I'm just kind of thinking through some things. Will this be able to? How can this can it communicate with Lucy as far as like work orders and work order numbers?
Yeah, so that's sort of another discussion, I guess.
That's what I thought, but I figured I'd ask. So
it's all about workflow, right? So how the workflow happens, the options for going. So if you're gonna optimize something, it's probably best to start with LEGO because there's not really an optimized function in Lucidity. Yeah. So you could get a list. You could get like I'm going to go through the import option. So you could have a list, a spreadsheet, import those into LEGO, run and optimize. It would optimize your routes, and then you could sort of decide from there what you want to do. Do you want to actually assign it to them, where they could go do turn-by-turn directions on that sort of approach, and then fill the information out, and then send it over to Lucidity that way, or so anyways, it's sort of a discussion of the workflow. First question is, what's the source, and then, what's the purpose of what you're trying to do at the end, or is it like, so, because Lucidity obviously has their information. You can put things in Lucidity, you can create work orders, you can do, but then if you've created them and you've already created routes and all of that, what do you want to do with LEGO at that point if you've done that already? So, or so anyways,
I was kind of thinking along the lines of, and I don't know if this is possible. I was thinking along the lines of, we got a work order, and a work order may have 5 assets, linear assets. Would be, we got some water leaks in a particular neighborhood or a particular area. And so say it's 5 water lines and each line is considered an asset. Could LEGO pull, like, say, that work order number and those assets from Lucity and then optimize the route that way, or would that have to be done manually?
Yeah, so we have to figure out how, again, the workflow with that would work.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I would probably need to bring in some technical staff on the integration and then how that would work. I'm not really prepared to do that today, but I guess.
Oh, I know. And what you just, with this dispatch and having this schedule, just kind of sparked, it kind of made my wheels turn, because like, my official job title is a planner scheduler. Miss Pam's a scheduler for fleet. I'm a planner scheduler. I do multiple divisions. And so what we've been trying to basically get more efficient at is setting our schedules, weekly schedules for our crews.
Right.
And so looking at this, like, one of the big divisions I plan and schedule for is the collection system. So we've got the jet vac trucks and they have to go out, they wash lines or they CCTV lines. And so they may have a work order that's got 100 assets on it, meaning lines. And so I was just kind of thinking, if this would, talk with Lucy, and again, this stuff's way over my head, but where we could put in a work order number and it pulls LEGO pulls those assets from Lucity using that work order number, and this may not be possible, but just worth an ask. And then it can give that crew a route. Okay, you start here and then you work your way until, you get done or whatever, what have you.
Okay. Yeah, so let me get through the demo, because one of the things I'm going to cover here is what you're talking about. We have done something with a customer where we pulled a route from Lucity and brought it into LEGO. It's a solid waste, basically a solid waste route that's work orders in Lucity. So let me go through that. Maybe that'll help answer some of your questions, and then if you have additional questions after that, let's cover that.
Okay.
So, and right now I'm just sort of covering individual jobs, like an individual, but we're going to get into more. So you can, based on, the nice thing about LEGO is you can get closest vehicle, closest worker to a location, gives you the distance. As you can see, when you're going to add the worker, it'll tell you what's closest. And then once you've actually completed that, you can then dispatch that out to them. And they, again, will get turn-by-turn directions. For the route side of things, so you have a route, you have a list, and this is actually the customer I was talking about, where they have commercial solid waste pickups that they are on a schedule. And so this is, so for this commercial vehicle, they have what's called the North Monday route. So every Monday, they have to go out and pick up, and they were doing this all on paper before. So they'd get a piece of paper, they'd have, the address, location, and the time, and so forth to set this up is all on paper. So basically what they did is they did add this into Lucity, and then we exported it out of Lucity and imported it into LEGO. And then what they could do is then optimize the route option from this. And there's the concept of the jobs, which are the weekly routine of going out and going to these stops. But they also have, what we did was we put in all of their, basically their stops are what are called points of interest. So their points of interest are sort of permanent, and that could also be an asset, but these, in this case, going to, Prescott Flower Shop, and then every week they have to go out and pick up. And so then they can, as they go there, again, there's two options for them in terms of how they do it. It could automatically complete the job when they arrive. So when they get to that location, so they have this on their mobile device, which in this case is a tablet. Tablet just tells them where to go. It's kind of like Garmin. It says go here, go here, and then you get there. And then again, you can set it up on the back end to just complete that job automatically, or you can have them enter information. So there is the capability to take a picture associated to the job. So when they're there, if they find they have to, there's a big mattress or something they have to pick up that's not normal, they could take a picture of that associated to that job or that sort of thing, and tag it to that. And then, of course, there's all just built-in reports that are related to that. So one is the automatic, if they missed any stops, you could get something that says, like you could either send an alert that they missed the stop, or you could get a report of, for this month, this is how many stops we did, this is the total duration at those stops, and then you could get a report based on the jobs themselves. So one is the location, and secondarily is the jobs. You can get reports of when they're complete, who, obviously what vehicle was there that arrived, and all that's automatic. That's sort of the beauty of LEGO is that you can make it so that it's hands off and it's all location based on where they're driving and going, and then get reports based on that. So you can really simplify it in terms of you just want to automate the process and not have the driver do anything, or you can have the driver actually interact with it. So, but to create a route, basically you go the same thing. Instead of creating a job, you create a route, and then it looks something like this. Route name, you create the route name. You can put a note to the operator if that's something that they can see. You can decide the color code for the route or the state of the color. So in other words, this is if you wanted to show more of what the status is of the job itself, whether it's complete or late or whatever, you could color code based on that, or you could color just based on the route color. So there's sort of options on how it's displayed on the map. And then, of course, who it's assigned to. And then there's the individual stops. So jobs are basically what those are, is the place they have to go. In this case, would be the concept of a work order is a job. But a work order is the actual work that's being done in that route and the stops they have to stop at. So when you expand the jobs section here, or work order section, this is where you could add those individual stops or work orders or whatever in here. So you can enter the address, or you could right-click on the map and it'll just automatically add it in there to each location. So this is sort of if you were doing it manually. I'm going to cover the import. So if you had a spreadsheet, you could import all this and it would do all this automatically for you. But this is sort of if you're manually creating a route, this is sort of the process to do that. And this walks you through those steps of how to create that route. And then once the route is created, what we recommend is before you assign it to somebody, you would actually optimize. So you can optimize it, and it will, and so going back to, if you look at this screen, there's this little return to depot, and the other one is pin start and pin finish. So the concept there is if you ran optimize based on return to depot, what that means is maybe it's a yard. They're going out, and then they're coming back to the same location where they started. That would be an optimize for going from, basically they're starting at a location and they're coming back to the same location. The other one is start and finish. That one would be, and so it will drop down here. So you'd pick a start and finish, and what that would do is it would optimize based on a beginning start location and then wherever they're going to end. Like let's say they're going to somewhere across the city, and that's going to be their ending point. You run the optimize there, and it's going to optimize based on those two different stop locations. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So yeah, you optimize, and then what it does is it'll actually show you the percentage of optimization, like how many, the distance that it's improved, the efficiency that it's improved, and it reorders all of those work orders or jobs, so to speak, in an order that's sort of the optimized or best route for that, is what happens. And then you could save that route, and then you would actually dispatch it. So after you've optimized it, the route is sort of sitting in an unassigned, and what you do is you right-click on the route, and then you would edit it, and then you just pick the assign to here in the little drop-down of who it's assigned to, and then save that. And then once it's saved, it goes into, if you notice, it went from unassigned, so if we go back, it's sort of in this unassigned, and there's nothing right now assigned to this commercial garbage. Once you've assigned it, it actually goes into their queue, and it's now visible. It's assigned to them. However, it hasn't been dispatched to them yet. So you right-click and you just do dispatch all, and then what it does is it actually goes to them, and then they would actually see it on their mobile device after you've dispatched it. So you can sort of create a bunch, or they could be essentially, you could set it up on a schedule, and then they can all be pre-created, and then you could just decide when they're sort of dispatched and that sort of thing, or you could have them. So anyways, there's some flexibility in terms of how that works. In the upper right-hand corner, there's sort of the jobs list or work order list. So this sort of shows in the order of, again, going back to this customer, they used to have this all in paper. Now they sort of have it digitally, and it gives them sort of the order in which they're going. From the person in the office, they could actually see if they're late to certain locations, if they're supposed to be going there and getting to a location by a certain time. It'll show, sort of their ETAs, information, and that sort of thing. There's also, in that jobs list, there's a state, so you can see for whether they're dispatched or they're yet to be dispatched, or which work order or job is actually completed in the list there. So you can visually see what's been completed, or sort of a state of the individual stop that they're going to. And it changes colors, different colors based on sort of the state too. In terms of scheduling, so obviously you can schedule the individual job just by going in and editing the individual work order job and putting the date and time it's due. Or you could do it more on a reoccurring schedule. So that the one that I showed you with the regards to the North Monday route, they basically just check this Monday. Once you've created your route, you can check a day, and it'll basically automatically create those reoccurring work orders for them every day that you pick. So you don't have to go in and create it. It's just automatically generated and then set up for them for whatever day. So sort of you can set the schedule up for the route if it's a sort of a reoccurring route. And then again, you can assign the worker and do the dispatch and so forth. So importing the route, this is what, with this other customer, as I mentioned, what we did with them is they exported it out of Lucidity, and then we just imported that in through Lego to bring it in to do sort of the optimized approach and use it that way. Or you can take just a spreadsheet. So this other customer, they just had a spreadsheet basically, and there's sort of a format here, and you can put, if you wanted in a route, you'd put the route name that it's going to and which worker, and that just basically automatically creates it all for you if you had a spreadsheet. You just click import, and then it brings up this form, and then you just choose the file, and then it just creates it that way rather than having to manually enter those in. And so I'll show you here. I just review mobile dispatch exercise document down below here. this will kind of give you an idea of one of the things we did with another customer is, so this is what this particular customer is doing is they're appraisers. So they have to go out and appraise all these properties. And so they would import these routes in, and then it would, these are locations where they would have to go out and inspect a property. And so they'd have a spreadsheet. We'd then import that spreadsheet to them. It would then come into and be assigned. So if you notice down here, Jason, he has that route. It was assigned to him, and that's where it sort of shows visually here where they're supposed to go. You just would right-click and then edit the route, and then basically dispatch that route out. To optimize, basically for them, they would do this return to depot optimize, and then they would run that, and then it just would reorder the way they were supposed to go. So they would just sort of have a list, and then they would run this optimize, and it would give them the best sort of path to go complete those. And so if you notice here, there's again, pin, start, and end. And that's sort of a different optimize based on you're not coming back to the same location. Yeah, so then just dispatch all. And then when you dispatch, it changes the color. So it goes from sort of, let's see, sort of this gray color. Once it's been dispatched, it turns yellow. And then as they actually complete those stops, they turn green. So as you're sort of they're going out and completing those inspections, they would actually turn green. And so this sort of shows, green is complete. And so anyways, that's just to give you a sort of a daily workflow thing that they were doing. So on the mobile device, again, there's a dispatch application that you can get. Again, if it's, in this case, this is an iPad, but it's the same sort of thing. Looks like this little D here. This is where you would connect to the server. As I mentioned, that QR code. So on the mobile device, you'd say, I have QR code. You click that, and then you go to LEGO, and then you go to LEGO, and then in that dispatch drop-down menu, you could then, it would give you the code to scan, and then on your mobile device, it actually scans the code that comes up on the server, and then links those two. So it's sort of from the mobile device to LEGO, then they're linked together so that you know this mobile unit is tied to this, and it sort of populates the server information and all the details behind the scenes with regard to your server to that mobile device. Does that make sense there?
Yeah, so what's the app called again? What's the name of it?
It's just it's a LEGO dispatch app. So, and if you decide you want to use that, we can help you through the setup process. We have a document that sort of walks you through how to do that and set that up.
Okay, is there any extra cost to doing the mobile?
So there is extra cost if you're going to be doing the tracking because it's basically another feed in LEGO that if you want to track the mobile device. So that's basically I know we would need to provide you a quote for the subscription for that, but yeah.
Okay, but for the dispatching, there's not?
There's not if you don't want to be tracked. So if there's no tracking mechanism of it, then it's just
So if it's just like sending, okay, here's your jobs for the day, and
Right.
then you can't do the you couldn't do the autocomplete and stuff, but they would be able to view their jobs for the day.
Yes.
Okay.
So this is kind of what it looks like. So this is what I was mentioning. There's sort of a jobs. They'd have a list of jobs, and it'd give them their schedule. So it'd show the time for when they're supposed to be there, and information. They could click on the individual one to get more details of these. They could basically start, and it would, if they pick the first one, they have the option to then go and route there, and then they can see on the map. So down below here, if you notice on the right-hand side, there's sort of a list, calendar, and then a map view. So they kind of have different views of how they can see their jobs based on either the list or a calendar or a map. So if they click on one, it then gives them the option, different options to just start it or route to it. And again, if they start the route, it's going to give them turn-by-turn direction, and it'll give them verbal. If they have like a phone or a tablet, it'll say, turn right on Colt Road, turn left, just like a Garmin sort of thing. And so in the route, it's basically, that shows you an example here. It gives you, you can see visually on the map, and then you can get audible directions, so to get to that location. And then again, this is if you're having the person in the field actually interact with the jobs. Again, you could set these to autocomplete as well. So autocomplete, they wouldn't necessarily need to even do any kind of interaction. It's just basically, they could use it for turn by turn, but then it just completes it when they arrive, and then they go to the next one. Or they can obviously bring up a form and fill things out. But as they're completing or pausing in the office, so this is sort of on the left-hand side is the person in the field, and then in the office over here, the color changes based on what they're doing with, whether they're, they've started it, it's one color. If they've paused it, once they finish it, it turns green. So it's dynamic to where you in the office can see sort of as they're, progressing through work visually. And then notice over here when they finish it, it actually turns green. Again, that's if they're interacting. If it's autocomplete, it would just do that automatically as they're sort of going along there and stopping at locations. So yeah, speaking of autocomplete, this is where the autocomplete, you can either just choose it to be on or off, and then it's going to, based on their that setup, it's going to just complete it when they arrive automatically, and there's no interaction with that. And here's also the QR code that I was talking about. So on the mobile device, you said you click on I have QR code. You click that, and then it basically has it goes to the camera, and then in Lego, you click QR code. It brings up the QR code in Lego. You scan that, then it populates everything on the mobile device so they're linked together.
Gotcha.
And then there's just a lot of other things you could do here. If you notice, you can add custom fields to the route. So any custom fields onto the, fields that are not out of the box, you could add those in. You could set things like default values. So there's sort of route fields, and then there's job fields that you can add onto those. And then you can get things like jobs report. So, which jobs were sort of completed, how long it took, completion, duration, anything like that. All right, so let's go over to, I'm actually going to switch over to Prescott here since we've been talking about that. If I come down here and I go to dispatch, so just like the dashboard, dispatch brings in, I've got dispatch and dispatch analyze. I can drag I just grab and drag this over here. Didn't really talk about the analyze, but it's similar. It's a dashboard for your routes or jobs that can sort of show, it's specifically for dispatch, so they can see sort of assigned jobs, you know, what's been dispatched percentage, what's finished on time. So if you've sort of, again, in the view that you're in, if you've assigned a bunch of jobs, this just sort of gives you a visual, again, sort of that KPI metrics thing that shows sort of where people are with going out on their routes, how much they're complete, what, you know, if they're on time with when they were supposed to go, and all that sort of gives them a visual of that. All right, so I'm going to go back to, these are always scheduled on Mondays, so I'm just going to go back and go to where, okay, so here's one. This was on the 17th. So if you notice here, this route, if you click on the route, it's going to show sort of the locations. If I click on the beginning or start of that route, it's going to actually show sort of the tracks there as I click. You notice that it's unassigned at this point. I can come over here on the right. It sort of gives me the complete list of those. If I right-click on the sort of the starting point here, I can either export to schedule, I can edit the route, and then I can decide I want to actually assign it to, say, the commercial garbage truck here. Here's my jobs list here, and then I save that. When I save it, it's going to go down to, now it's assigned to this commercial garbage truck here. And then if I just, again, now that I've done that, I can now dispatch all. So if I dispatch, you notice they've now turned yellow. And so on the mobile device, they will get that. Now they're basically, when they log in, they would have all of those lists of jobs in their route that they could then, and they would start with this one here, the beginning one, and they would just take them turn-by-turn directions to go to their stops. And then as they complete those, I'll just pick one here. So that one, say that one's complete. That's basically sort of what, on the mobile device, as they're completing it, that's sort of what it would look like here, is it would turn green as they're completing them along the way here. And of course, my jobs list is complete. Finished wise. So everything's just now assigned, dispatch jobs, everything's been dispatched. I can see that 7% of those are finished at this point. So, and so then there's, again, on the right-hand side here, I can create a job or I can create a new route if I wanted to. And I can, if I create a new route here, and so as this is empty, I can either enter in an address, or if you can use this address search to go to a location, and then you just right-click on the map and it says add step to current route, and it just puts that new location in there. And so again, if you knew each address, you could just enter the address, it'll zoom to that location, and then from there you can just keep on sort of adding it to the next step of the route like that, and then you sort of see visually where those are. So you could either do it by address or by utilizing the map here, and it just keeps sort of adding that to, adding it to the route, so to speak. That's sort of if you were going to add a new route. And then, let me go like up here. And I'll put one over here, maybe just really mess it up here. So this is maybe a list that you got that wasn't really optimal to start out with. But then you have the option here where you could do either pin to start or pin. So if you were to pin start finish like that and then run optimize, it you can see it just changed the route there dynamically based on, I just ran an optimize there. So this would be, you know, and you can see the order has changed here as well. So it went from, this was 1, this was 2, this was 3. Now it's going sort of in this order after you optimize. Or you could do it the other way where you return to depot, which would be basically the return to depot would be the start, and the start would be the same place you return to, and it's going to change it based on sort of that approach. So anyways, that's sort of how you create a route. And then again, in this drop down right here, the little drop down menu, you could import. You just go out and choose your file and then import that in that way. So there's quite a bit of information to sort of throw at you here, but do you have any questions about that? And it sounds like you do have questions with regard to Lucity, and probably we can have another session on that. But this is just to give you sort of a conceptually, I guess, how the dashboard and the dispatch work. And part of it is workflow, I guess, with regard to dispatch. You could obviously use this. Go ahead.
I would also like to know how ESRI, you know, our maps how they can factor into this as well. Because basically, I don't know. I don't know how far into the integration they are with Lucity and ESRI. You may know more than I do, because that's being handled with our IT people. So I'm not sure how far along they are into doing that. But I was just thinking some of the stuff we would be able to, like we got pump station and stuff like that, we would be able to you know, import a list that way to make those basically points of interest, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
So yeah, you could take points and then import them in, and then get a report based on you could get a report just based on their location of when they arrive and total time and duration. But then you could also have like sort of a route if they have to go to all of those spots. You could then create a route to all of those, and then that's more on a sort of a scheduled basis. They need to go check all of these, and you could set categories for your points of interest, so they could be, you know, just different types of categories. Might be, you know, based on types or something, like pump stations versus, I don't know, some other category, and then you can create routes to that particular category, I guess, so to speak.
Okay. Okay. Well, yeah, some of my questions may get a little not technical as far as me, because I'm not technical at all, but just as far as with the dispatching and setting up the jobs and stuff, if it were possible for us to do, you know, locations based on assets that were, I don't, like I said, I don't know where we are with the integration as far as with Lucity and ESRI, and what exactly that all entails, if we would be able to view our entry maps through LEGO or vice versa.
Yeah, so just regarding that topic, so right now with ESRI, we can use, if you want it in LEGO, we can add the ESRI maps in LEGO where you could see, see your assets or see any layers in there. Yeah. It would be primarily for from a visual standpoint. In other words, sort of a backdrop. You could of course right-click at a location because you could see them and create a job at that location. But we could also take those assets and import them in as points of interest, and then because as a point of interest, then what you could do is based on, because it's only going to the vehicle or the person in the field, if again you're tracking a phone or the vehicle, if you want to report to know that they've arrived there or missed the spot, it has to be a point of interest in there to be able to sort of, if you want some sort of notification or reporting based on whether they've arrived there, it has to be like either a point of interest or a geofence. We could also work with, right now at least on the ESRI side, we could have those, you could have whatever maps, your assets visually, like, or, anything that's ESRI related could be in LEGO as a visual cue sort of thing for either the driver or the person in the office to have.
Okay. But in order to do the mobile dispatching, we would have to pay an extra subscription for the device, correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah, that is, but just to view
that's only if you're wanting to sort of track it. You're wanting the tracking part in LEGO.
So and then the turn and also the turn by turn. Yeah,
because in order to know sort of where the location is.
Okay.
Location based. So yeah, and it is less expensive than our typical subscription because one, you're obviously providing the device. So we're not having to provide you hardware or anything. So it is a less, not as expensive as say, because we would have to provide the device obviously to go in, but you're providing the device. So all we're doing is just, connecting that device up and so forth. So it is not as expensive as the LEGO, one of the vehicle tracking ones.
Okay, and as far as the autocomplete, so say crew come up to do, any number of jobs or whatever, so they get there, if you did the autocomplete, does it automatically log, okay, this is complete, or does it wait until they leave that location? And if it does that, does it log the time in which they leave that location?
Yeah, so it logs the time that they arrive, the duration, and then when they depart. And so, so once they've gotten there, and I think it's configurable based on there's a certain duration of time that they're there, and then it completes that job once, and there's sort of a radius or distance that they're within an area of that particular location that it'll auto-complete.
Okay. Gotcha.
So Pam, you've been quiet. Do you have any questions? Do you have any questions as well, or?
I don't. It's a little overwhelming, but it's my first session into this. But I guess once we get you send us the taping of it and I go over it, maybe it'll make more sense to me.
So have you used LEGO, just the standard LEGO at all, or?
Yeah, just the standard.
Okay. I just didn't know. I could see where it could definitely be overwhelming too if you hadn't had the LEGO training, some of the so this is definitely an advanced training. And if you hadn't had if you weren't involved in any of the other training, basic LEGO training, that, yeah, it would definitely be overwhelming for you. I can see that. This is meant to be a sort of an advanced, these are advanced functions, but just, it's, you know, the nice thing is that you know that the capability is there to do a lot of things. And if you want to use pieces and parts, you don't have to use all of it, everything that you display, but there may be some parts that may be useful that you could see where you could use it. And it's all, you know, like the dashboard is all there, it's all available. And so it's just another tool in the tool chest, so to speak. Well, any other questions? We're sort of running to the end of our time here.
I think that's about it. I mean, I'm good. It's yeah, it's a little bit to digest, but it seems like it's pretty user friendly. Like I said, I've got the dashboard pulled up on mine, and that's I kind of like it because you can see a lot of things real time, right there, without having to kind of go through reports or.
Okay, so once you, again, right now it's only set up to have Tuscaloosa administrators, so
yeah.
Just, oops, I'm not in Tuscaloosa, so let me go back to Tuscaloosa here and just, okay. So you just go in either for the dispatch or the dashboard. So again, I'll sort of pick on the water readers here, because I know they don't have, they're not seeing this right now, but the dispatch section is right here. It's just under dispatch, and then you have all these different options for obviously whether you want them to edit. So you would, if it's someone that's going to be like a person that's in the field, you probably would uncheck the dispatch edit all jobs, but maybe just edit their own jobs, for example. And so, you know, you could check, and then just sort of, this gives you what they can see in terms of the sort of the dispatch standpoint, and then the, let's see, dashboard is right, where did the dashboard go? Oh, right here. So again, the dashboard, here is your, oh, it looks like you're already starting to create some dashboards there, or dashboard items. So
Yes. Yeah.
So anyways, each role whoever you want them to see certain things, this is where you would turn it on, and they can start to see those either dashboards or dispatch items there. So yeah, just start to work with those things, and then you know, if you have questions, just let us know about it. So we're always interested in hearing sort of different needs or use cases for how you can do you know, how you want to use these things. So, you know, it'd be good to hear after you start to use some of the dashboard items, what's sort of working for you, what's not working for you, and then that can obviously help us maybe improve what we're doing a little bit.
Yeah, like I said, that I will get with Lauren and a couple other folks about that the dashboard, and then the scheduling and stuff, because it might be something that, you know, some more people who are more technically knowledge than I can, you know, maybe articulate what I'm trying to ask to your people, and it might be something that they may want to kind of explore a little bit further on.
Okay.
You know, talking with, you know, pulling things from Lucy or pushing things to Lucy, because I know it, you know, you got to kind of, like you said, the workflow, how they want it done.
Yeah,
that might be-
exactly. That when you're getting to that level, it's definitely thinking through the workflow, because we have APIs on either side. I mean, we have our API, we have our Lego access, and then Lucity has their API, which we've been working with for a long time. It's just a matter of where, you know, what triggers what from which direction, because I guess there's a lot of different things you can do. It's just deciding which sort of flow that you want it to flow in, and you know, what triggers what event to go where. So, if you follow me there.
Yes. Okay. Well, good deal. Well, Rhett, we greatly appreciate it. And I did talk to Lauren, and she got tied up with some other things, so she apologizes that she missed.
Okay. Well, we'll get this video to you. It may take a little while to process.
That'll be fine.
Once it's processed, we'll send it off, and then hopefully that'll be helpful to Lauren or anyone else that wants to use it.
All right, perfect. Thank you, Rhett. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Have a great holiday, Christmas, too.
Y'all do the same.
Rhett.
Bye.
Bye-bye.